Oh, that's not how it's done. Hey, today I want to talk about my year-long passion project, which is to translate another Game Boy Advance game down to the last pixel. If you're familiar with anime, then you probably know by now that anime and video games go hand in hand, and Satch Bell was a very popular anime back in the day. Well, I guess it wasn't popular enough because not a lot of people remember it.
Kyo was just an ordinary genius.
XY squared to the sixth.
That's correct.
But I remember it. I would follow the show when it was on Toonami and Magusi, and I would record new episodes on VHS. I never got any of the toys, but I did have the cards and the video games. But because Satch Bell had a late and rather brief appearance in the West, we only got to see 3 games get localized. Try to guess how many games they actually made in Japan. 9 games. 5 on the Game Boy Advance and 4 on the GameCube and PS2. On the Game Boy, you have an action RPG with an original story, you have one based on the card game, the one we got officially that's based on the first season, the one based on the second season, and the final GBA title is based on the third season, which is the game I decided to pick up and translate. This is Konjiki no Gashville Yujo no Sakeru Dream Tag Tournament. That's a mouthful, so I call it Satch Bell Dream Tag Tournament. This time around, my goal is to translate the game in the style of an official localization, much like in the previous translation. But the difference is that I'm using all the knowledge I gained from working on Electric Arena 2, so no shortcuts, no workarounds, everything is as adequate as I can make it. So let's go right ahead and talk a bit about some of the features and technical aspects of the project. For Dream Tag Tournament, it only uses one encoding, Shift-JIS, and it also uses absolute pointers, so I wrote a program that goes through the entire pointer table, extracting every line to a new file that can be opened in any text editor. And the modified script can then be inserted into the game by my program. One of the problems I faced in Electric Arena 2 was that by using the 1-byte encoding, I didn't have much space for new characters, as I needed to implement accented letters and other special characters in order to make it easier to translate the game to more languages. But for Dream Tag Tournament, I wanted multi-language support to be one of its main features. Since I also know Spanish, I decided to make a parallel translation. Every time I translated something to English, I would also do it in Español. This is the first time a Satch Bell game is available in Spanish, and I hope it might inspire others to translate the game to more languages as well. When changing graphics in the game, I always try to mimic the original look as much as I can. Sometimes this is impossible due to harsh limits, but I can mostly guarantee that every translated graphic is properly represented and doesn't feel out of place. Much like in the previous game, there's a lot of voice acting, with a total of 214 voice clips and around 39 unique voices. Because of that, dubbing the game doesn't seem like a practical thing to do. But a lot of the phrases that the characters say are taken from the show. They're still newly voiced, but you can tell it's stuff that the characters have said before. For example, and many of those phrases actually found their way into other Satch Bell games, ones that did get localized, like Mamoto Fury and Mamoto Battles. By sourcing the voices from those games, I was even able to fill the blanks whenever a phrase didn't exist in the dub.
I won't forgive you for this. Rowdy Baron!
So by using clips from the games, the anime, and sometimes even from Naruto Clash of Ninja, I was able to produce a high-quality dub for the majority of characters. Yes, over 150 voices have been replaced as an optional enhancement for the translation, with the remaining voices having a good potential for fan dubbing. If you played Electric Arena 2, then you might know that I already tried implementing a dub for that game as well. But for that particular game, I didn't want to expand the ROM size, out of convenience for the user, and this forced me to sometimes speed up voice clips in order to fit everything on the original size. But there was actually another issue. Even if I wanted to, sounds could not exceed what seemed to be a random limit depending on the voice. Dream Tag Tournament doesn't have a lot of free space left, and I wanted to maintain as much quality as I could, so I decided that if the dub is enabled, the largest ROM size is required. Soon after replacing a few voices, I ran into the problem of sound cutting out if the voice clips were too long. This forced me to sit it out and reconsider my approach. I did some searching, and I found that the person who did the Final Fantasy sound restoration patches wrote up a pretty thorough document on how the GBA's commonly used sound engine works. This cleared up a lot of misunderstandings I had over how things worked. The voice clips as well as the sound effects are all treated like sequenced music. What this means is that every voice voice is attached to a list of commands that play the sound. We can see on the document that one of those commands is a wait code, and its purpose is to stall playback of the sequence while a particular sample plays. So by replacing the wait code with a much longer version, we can actually break the original limit. Please take a look.
Hello again, this is me, coming to you straight from the Game Boy Advance, or 3DS if you prefer. It's now possible to replace any sound in the game with a longer length. Well, I think Keith is getting tired from all this composing, so let's have him compose for something more suitable, shall we?
As you can see, I have mastered the art. Taking advantage of all that extra space in the expanded ROM, you can replace every track with a high quality and seamlessly looped music file. There's also no specific sample rate required. In fact, all the voice clips are available at the original rate, so that the user can choose their quality level if they wish to build the translation manually. Using an FFmpeg batch file, they can target any sample rate they want and have it working in the game within a few seconds. For the final patches, I used the original audio rate of 10,512 Hz, and you can even force the engine to use a higher output sample rate by using my program. Going higher can definitely help the quality. The original game has a few quirks, some that classify as glitches, others as bad design. So I want to mention the ones I experienced and how I fixed a couple of these problems in the translation. In most fighting games, every character has a unique introduction, always paired with a voice clip.
Ready.
Usually, both fighters have their animation play at the same time. In Dream Tag Tournament, this is the case, but because of the way the sound engine is designed, you can't play audio from the same group without overriding the previous sound. If the animation plays the sound too close from one another, it will cancel out the first one.
Fight! Fight!
It gives off a very awkward result and I couldn't stand it. In Electric Arena 2, this is solved by only playing the sound of player 2 during the intro. By writing some real nice assembly code, I was able to replicate this behavior by providing a list of the characters to determine who's in player 2's position. Some characters play 2 sounds instead of 1, so a list further helps to determine if the sound should play.
Fight! Fight!
A cool part of translating these games is that sometimes you can't avoid running into unused content, and this game has what seems to be an award for something. It's called the Dream Tag Badge. There's no information out there on this thing, but by toying a bit with the save file, I managed to find that it appears in the options menu. I guess this could be an event exclusive item like the one in the previous game, so I thought it would be cool to implement a method for unlocking this badge without needing a modified save file. What my assembly code does is check if you have all 100 items in the Satch collection, and then it will track the voice clips you play in the sound test mode. By playing voice number 2, followed by 147, followed by 36, followed by 9, it should now play a sound effect confirming that you now have the badge, and exiting from the sound test mode will show you the badge right there in options mode. This idea to play various voices from the sound test comes from the Genesis Sonic games. Another issue is that one of the minigames requires repeatedly pressing the A and B buttons to win the game. I've never liked this concept of wearing out your controller, and I'd go as far as to say that on some consoles it's near impossible to win on the hard difficulty. So I modified the game so that the normal and hard levels are the same as easy, which is much more doable on something like the 3DS. And the necessity for this change comes from the fact that you need to beat this minigame with a certain score in order to unlock a feature in the game, something that is only possible on hard mode. One issue I wasn't able to fix in the game itself is the slow decompression of data. A lot of the graphics in the game are compressed. The stage backgrounds, for example. If you're on the stage select screen, you might notice how the sound repeats when going through every background of a stage. This is something that happens on real hardware and is apparently caused by the native decompression code in the GBA's BIOS. I found out about this when I realized that the stutters didn't happen in older versions of the mGBA emulator. Version 0.9.3 was the last stable release to feature this faster decompression before becoming more accurate. If you're playing this game with mGBA, then I highly suggest seeking out this version because it really makes listening to the game a much nicer experience. Censorship was a big thing in this series since it aired on Cartoon Network as a TVY7 show. We're talking about off-screen violence, green guns, invisible blood, smokeless cigars, strange lyrics, and pretty much everything you can imagine. Obviously, when I mentioned wanting to do the translation in the style of an official localization, I meant using the names and terminology already established. The idea is to keep some consistency with the anime's English dub and other related products. I'm not going to go out of my way to censor something for absolutely no reason. A lot of Season 3 content actually got officially translated through the manga, but it was only available physically and briefly, so I had no access to it. Whenever this happened, I would ask my translation partner, Satchel Gamer, for confirmation on a character's name or similar. In other cases, I would reference his video walkthroughs which provide accurate translations for a lot of things in the game. One of these cases is the character Unused, where I didn't know this character had an official localized name because the anime's dub never got to his episodes. But the manga did, and Satchel Gamer told me he's called Pusophagus, a rather accurate name. But as someone who grew up watching the fansub, I've known this character only by his Japanese name, and I figure a lot of fans of the series would prefer the original name as well. So I decided to go the Yu-Gi-Oh route and keep it untranslated as Unused because it sounds cooler than Pusophagus. This series is no stranger to referencing other stuff. Another quirky translation case is that one of the playable characters is called the Three Vulcans. In Japanese, the number 3 is read Sun, so this character is called Sun Vulcan in Japanese. This is a reference to the 3-member Super Sentai show Taiyo Sentai Sun Vulcan. This game even calls them Omuteki Sentai, which means Invincible Squadron. Since this is one of the older Super Sentai shows, I don't think a lot of people will pick up on the reference, but they should at least know that it's some sort of Power Rangers thing. And that's it, a complete translation of another Satchel game. That means only 2 more to go on the Game Boy Advance. And I've already made a lot of effort on the action RPG Makai no Bookmark, having completed and made available a tool to handle the game's unique text encoding. Working on Dream Tag Tournament has been a very long process, but I am 100% satisfied with the result, and people will be able to enjoy Dream Tag Tournament's translation when it releases in early December.
Kidding!
Farewell, Feliz Navidad, and Merry Christmas!